by the way, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it. For those not familiar with you, Dan, would you mind just taking 30 seconds or so to share a little bit about your background in real estate and how you came to become Dan Rochon?
I got my license in 2007. And at the time, I was a highly functioning drunk waiter at a high-end steakhouse in Washington, D.C. And I knew I wanted to be able to be an entrepreneur, help people solve their problems and achieve their goals, but I had no idea how. And so I got my real estate license 2007, and for 6 months sucked, had zero sales. And then from month 6 to 18, I sort of figured it out, and using a method that I coined as teach to sell to be able to sell a whole bunch of homes in that second, 12 month 6 to 18. And then I bought the brokerage that I worked for, owned that for 10 years, sold it in 2018, and wrote a book, started a coaching company, joined EXP. And that's a brief overview.
All right. I'm curious. You said teach to sell. What does that mean?
Well, teach to sell is about, despite its name, it's not about sales. It's about influence, and it's about understanding how other people perceive the world through their senses. And then they sort of filter it through, their subconscious, and then they make meaning of it. And so when we understand that in the sales process, is really about understanding that, people are spiritual beings, and we want to be able to, accommodate to that spirit, but then also understand sort of like how do human beings function, and how do we think, and how do we make decisions. And so Teach to Sell is a book that I wrote that's coming out by Simon & Schuster that I wrote it because the average salesperson doesn't even consider, hypnotic techniques or neurolinguistic programming techniques or the language of sales or how to be able to ethically influence. And that's what Teach to Sell is.
All right, cool. And you and I were talking about lead funnels, and I wanted to pick your brain on those. And maybe just to start, I've heard different people refer to different things as lead funnels. How do you define a lead funnel?
Oh, well, so a lead funnel is really, if you consider it, it's to be able to find an avatar, so your avatar would be like, who is your client? And so if your client is a move up home buyer or move down, older aging prospect, home seller, then that would be your avatar. And so once you identify your avatar, then you sort of figure out, well, where's that avatar? Where do they hang out? What Facebook groups, YouTube, whatever, what do they read? And so now I know who they are. I know who my client is, and then I know where they hang out. So then I offer them something in that community of where they hang out that's going to provide them value. And then as I offer them something that's going to provide them value, then at that point I capture their contact information, and then I make a call and I see if they need our services. And, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't for 18 months, sometimes they don't for 3 years. And the reality of it is I would much rather do a listing today, but I bet I'm going to have to eat 18 months from now and 3 years from now. So I'm also happy to fill my pipeline for future sales.
All right. I'm curious, when you talk about your particular avatars, is it just one? Do you have multiple?
Well, as my business has developed, I've been doing sales for almost 20 years. So it has, I do have multiple. I've got the investors that I work with. I've got the first-time home buyers, veterans. I'm a disabled veteran myself. And, so I've got many different genres. But ultimately, for me, my avatar is somebody who either has a problem or a goal, and they want to be able to achieve that problem or goal. And then when you go back and how does that work with the sales funnels, it goes back into when you identify your avatars, what is their internal pain? Okay. What is their external pain? And so that's where you're starting, right? And so for a home seller, for example, they may be, their internal pain is they're scared about a relocation, they're nervous, they're anxious, they're eager to get going, they're worried about their kids' school. Those are some of the internal pains that they have. The external pains are they may not have the money to do the improvements. They may be afraid because they're moving across the country, whatever the case may be. So when you consider it, it's you start with the pain, internal and external, and then you say, well, what is their desire? Their desire is to have a safe home. Their desire is to be able to take care of their family. Their desire is to be able to have a dwelling that they can raise their family in and call that like that is home. And those could be some examples of some internal desires, and then some external desire, the feelings that they would get from that. The external desires would be something that you would help them achieve. It's a grandparents are downsizing, they want to be next to their grandkids. I've got a lady right now in Washington State. She wants to move cross country to Virginia, literally to be next to her grandkids. That is her external desire. And so then when you understand what's their internal, external pain, what's their internal, external desire, then you become the bridge or the conduit in between the two. And so you go back into the sales funnels. That would be the bait that you're offering them, would be the solution to whatever that pain is. So for example, let's say that their pain is they're afraid that they're going to take advantage of and lose money. So you could do a guide of the top 10 things that home sellers don't think about when they're selling their home that can cost them tens of thousands of dollars and know how to avoid this. That would be an example of some sort of bait that you could provide to them. But the reality of it is most home buyers, they want a home. So that's what you use it for bait. Most home sellers, they're looking for an expert. So it's the experience and it's the way you're going to be able to help them and putting together, funnels to be able to attract them.
Okay. And I'm curious, you mentioned first-time home buyers. What's the pain and desired pleasure for those folks? And then what kinds of baits do you offer for that?
Yeah. So some common, and everybody's going to be, individual, right? So I'll give you some common ones, Brian. A common pain that a first-time home buyer is experiencing. If you're a real estate agent, you've had this experience, is the fact that they're just scared, right? They don't want to be taken advantage of. They're thinking this is a $500,000 investment, and I've never made more than $100,000, $85,000 a year, right? Like that's just a tremendous amount of money, right? And that makes perfect sense. So a lot of time their pain revolves around that fear. And also, maybe I get a home and it's going to fall apart and I'm not going to have the money to repair the HVAC. So that would be like an internal fear would be, I'm afraid that, am I worthy of this? And then the external fear would be, well, what if I get it and I can't afford it? The desire oftentimes would be to be a homeowner so that you stop paying your landlord's mortgage and you start paying your own mortgage. Because either way, we're all paying somebody's mortgage, as you know. And so now I can be a homeowner. Now I can leave a legacy. Now I can be, part of, a mechanism of ownership that the wealthiest people in the world, they own real estate in the United States of America. And so if you can cross that threshold, sometimes they may have generations of renters and they want to be able to leave a legacy for their kids. That could be an example of of a method of, from the pain to the desire. So then what would the bait be for them? The bait be for them, and with buyers is a little bit different than sellers, because buyers, the bait's almost always a home. Because the thing with a buyer is that they everything that they need, that we as real estate professionals provide, is not what they want. What they want is a home. What they need is our expertise, our guidance, our negotiation skills, our representation, our service, our knowledge of the neighborhoods, of the local economics of the real estate market. These are the things that they need from us. But they don't know that they need that from us because they think they could just go online, they see a home, and boom, that's the process. But as we know, that's not. So that being said, typically for a home buyer, I would bring them in through the bait would either be a home buyer webinar, or it would be a home. And what I find is between them is that the home is a better bait than the home buyer webinar, because that's ultimately what they're looking for. And then when you give them the home, then you can invite them into the home buyer webinar. Then you can start educating them. Then you can start helping them to understand the predictable problems of the transaction. And that's how you convert them from somebody who you've met on the internet to somebody that you're showing homes to. You do that through a process, and that's using Teach to Sell. Is here's what you're going to experience through the transaction, and your competitors aren't doing that. When you're able to communicate with that buyer up front and set their expectations and consult them, I treat a buyer the same way as I treat a seller. By the time I'm there to meet with them, my job is to do two things: to get hired and to consult them. All right. Everything else before that, in the hiring process, we've already done before we even gotten to them. And then, once we meet with them, and you can continue the consultation, you get hired, and now you have a buyer that is not just educated, but you've earned their trust because you've educated them.
Got it. And sticking with the first-time home buyers as an example here,
sure.
Where are you going to find these folks to put your bait out there in the first? Where do you go?
There's a lot of different ways that you get in my state, Virginia. One of the things that they have is a home buyer grant. Okay, so if your state has something like a first-time homebuyer grant, and Maryland has that as well. Those are the two states that I'm licensed in. If your state has something like a first-time homebuyer grant, that's a great way is to be able to teach the classes and be the instructor. Again, it's teach to sell. You're the person, the guy or the gal in front of the room. You're educating the consumer, and now you're educating. In my state, you have to educate. They have to go through the education class to be able to qualify for the grant. Your state may or may not have that. Outside of that, you can then advertise to them using using data that would allow for you to advertise them, say you're using Facebook or Meta or whatever the case may be. Now, candidly, I wouldn't necessarily, even though I do help first-time home buyers, it's sort of like it's not something that I'm focused on. So I don't know if I would keep that as an avatar. If I'm a real estate agent figuring out my avatar, and there's a difference between a first-time home buyer. I've got a student of mine that I coach, and she's like $1 million plus. And she's been an agent forever. And she's like, why would I do the work for $200,000 versus $1 million when the $1 million is going to be a more mature buyer? They're going to be more decisive. They're going to be more qualified. They're going to be an easier client, and I'm going to make 5 times as much money. Right now, that being said, I'm here to help you, whether you're 200,000 or 200 million, it doesn't matter to me because it's all about providing service. It's all about helping. So there's the, what will I do versus what am I looking to do? What I'm looking to do is higher priced, tickets and, to be able to serve at a higher level.
I'm curious, when you talk about buyers, whatever the price range, you're absolutely right. They don't want an agent; they want to see a home. And you said, give them a home. How are you doing that? Is that just simple IDX, or is there something else you're doing?
Well, if you think about this in every single step, so yes, simple IDX. Yet it's also, let's say I had a home buyer came in 2 days ago. Today's a Monday. This is a Monday, right? We're doing this on Monday. Let's say I got a lead on whatever on Friday, and I've not gotten in touch with them yet. So instead, what I see a lot of agents do is they're following up with that client. They haven't talked to them, or maybe they have once, and they're saying, hey, Brian, I'm here to help you. Do you need my help? Some sort of version of that. Well, again, go into what do they need and what do they want. They don't want your help. So even when you're looking at it from not just like the lead generation process, but also the conversion process, it's always, in fact, I got a text on my phone right now that I've got to find a home for this guy. He's in Chicago. He wants to relocate to Virginia. I sent him a text over the weekend. Abdus is his name. I said, Abdus, I've got a home. I thought of you. It's perfect for you. He texts me back. He says, all right, text me the home. Well, now I got to go find the home for him. And that's fine because I know that the home exists. Okay, so I'm within integrity when I reach out to him like that and say, hey, I have a home because I know I could find it in 5 minutes. And now I'm approaching Abdus with, I've got a home for you. He's responsive to that versus if I approached him with, hey, do you want my help? He's probably not going to be responsive.
Let's sit down and do a buyer consultation. I'll tell you why I'm so awesome. All right. So when you think about these lead funnels and these offers, are they all digital offerings of some sort, or are there other things that you're doing?
Mostly digital offers. We also do packets where I don't have one available for me right now, but we also do packets where we will send them. I wrote a book on how to get the top dollar for the sale of your property here in Fairfax County, and I just changed the county to wherever we're located. And so we'll deliver that book to the doorstep with some cookies and some doggy treats and some little gadgets, that type of stuff. So when we're working with sellers, we always will deliver that to them. Again, it's more of a values, like you've already sort of gotten in front of them. And we also have a package for buyers as well. So what we find is if we get in front of somebody, the odds of them using us is really, really high. Okay, because we're communicating with them proactively. We are providing them with the service. We are outperforming our competitors because of the way that we're approaching this. And I think most importantly is we're educating them. Because I cannot tell you how many times I've worked with a buyer and they came to me and was like, Dan, I can't believe that you took the time to explain this to me. I was working with ABC agent before and I never actually even hired them. And, I said, can you show me 123 Main Street? And they met me at the door, and that was about the entire consultation. You took the time to be able to explain to me what it's going to be like the day after I write that offer that gets accepted, and the emotions that I'm going to be having, and the turmoil I'm going to be having, and the fact that my sister's going to text me and say, you're an idiot because you're buying where the interest rates are right now. And all those things that I was second guessing myself about, you walked me through it before I experienced it. going back to answer your question, most of the magnets that we use are online, but some of them could be in a live teaching class, and we would use them in that capacity as well.
Where do you mention groups? Are these like Facebook groups or next door? How are you finding these folks?
Yeah, mostly groups. So if you're looking at, so I've got a partner of mine who's got a really, really large community-based Facebook group. So when you think about Facebook or Meta, there's so many different layers to it that you can use it for lead generation. What I believe is that one of the best layers is to create a community group, and then love on that community group in a way that you're the community expert, not necessarily the real estate agent expert. The real estate agent expert is that's sort of an, oh, by the way, in the background of it, right? And, people know that you're a real estate expert. In fact, I just was talking to a lady on my drive about an hour ago, and she's gave me a call, and, from that exact, like capacity of knowing that I'm a real estate expert. And she's giving me a call to say, hey, I'm thinking about listing my house. Who do you know that can help me? I know that you know everybody. I'm like, well, maybe you and I should talk about this, right? So it wasn't a direct, exactly what I was looking for, but it was close enough. I got the call. But the community groups, the Facebook groups are really good and really effective to be a community expert. And as being a part of a community expert, then people that are moving into the area or moving out of the area would also see you as sort of like a byproduct of that.
When you say community, are these neighborhoods, towns?
Yeah.
Yes, all of the above.
It depends on your location. Like I have one for a local community, and I have one for a very, very large town, or maybe city, actually. And so what I find is that the conversations begin with the local community. The local community is right up the street from me. It's however they have maybe 2,000, 2,200 homes in it. And it's interesting because as the administrator, I get messages often where it's like, hey, the trash people didn't come today. What do we do about it? That type of thing. So it ends up, causing me to have to figure stuff out that I ordinarily wouldn't know or have to figure out. But that's what, that's a part of the approach.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? I'm curious though. So it sounds like you created this. It sounds like a neighborhood. You say community. It sounds like this a master plan community? Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Yeah. The smaller one of like the 2,200 or so, that would be a neighborhood. The larger one, which is I think we have around 70,000 or so in the group now. That's a city. And it's a different conversation. The reason why I said the two, because it's a different conversation between a larger community versus a smaller community. They're talking about trash pickup and snow removal in the community, where in the bigger city, they're talking about where to take a first date, that type of thing. Where can I go bowling?
And you started both of these.
One I started, and one I partnered with somebody else, and he started it.
Okay. And which one generates more business for you, out of curiosity, the 70,000 one or the 2,200 one?
It's a good question. I think, I'm relatively newer on the larger one, so we haven't yet gotten the returns from that. And the administrator previously was just not. He's very, very skilled at marketing. He's very, very skilled at getting noise out there. He has an opportunity for sales, right? So if you think about sales and marketing, so he had almost no sales, and the reason why he was interested in partnering with me was I was like, listen, I could do the sales for you. You've got the marketing, you've got the audience. We got 70,000 people there, and it's relatively new, so I don't know what it's going to produce. But here's the thing: you put me in front of 70,000 of anybody. I don't care if it's 70,000 cows. I'm going to find a home to sell one of those cows, right? Like, cows need homes too. Like, I don't care who it is. You give me a large enough number, you can figure it out. Maybe next interview, you can tell me not to use the cow analogy. I'll drop that from my repertoire moving forward. Thanks for the advice.
The analogy completely. Yeah, this is good. I'm sitting here thinking that, this is the mistake that a lot of us make when we get our license. We think we just kind of shout into a big megaphone, "Hey, world, I'm here," and everybody's going to show up, right? And then we realize, nope, I got to find my tribe. And so when you look at those kinds of numbers, you immediately be drawn to the 70,000 because, oh boy, conversion rates, blah, blah, blah. But it's a lot harder to message 70,000 people than it is 2,200 people, because those 2,200 people have more in common than the 70,000 too. And so with your 2,200 group, I'm curious, how long ago did you create that Facebook group?
Oh, that's been a couple years now. That's been probably, I don't know, if I was to guess, maybe 3 or so years. And then I've got other real estate groups as well. So a group that a lot of agents, the consistent predictable income community is a group that real estate agents can take a look at. That's for sales professionals, entrepreneurs, and gives tips and techniques on how we do all this stuff. And so, but the community group around 2,200, we've probably closed. It hasn't been as many as I'd like, maybe a half a dozen in 3 years. So maybe 2 a year from that, but I'll take it.
Yes, and it sounds like it'll ramp up over time. But I'm curious, how did you get 2,200 people to join that group? So you're sitting around one day and you're like, I'm going to start a Facebook group for this neighborhood, and then what happened?
Well, if you think about it, you say ABC community. Nobody in that community thinks that this is, it just looks like, like you don't even think about who the administrator is. You don't even think about like who's putting this together. You just see. You talked about Nextdoor earlier, right? Like it's the reason why, one of the reasons why Nextdoor is so successful is because we're tribal people. We're tribal beings rather, and so when we see a tribe or a community that we belong to, we want to belong to it. And so whether that be, tonight the Washington Commanders are playing the Chicago Bears, whoever's listening to this is probably going to tell me the score and hopefully it's that the Commanders won, right? But I'm a part of the Commanders tribe and somebody else is part of the Chicago Bears tribe, right? Well, somebody's a part of the Little Rocky Run community tribe. That's the community, right? And so people are attracted to that. It does take you a little bit to get it up and running, but if you get, if you can invite, 100 people or so to the community, it sort of built itself from there. Like we didn't put a lot of effort into that. It was just had some friends that live there. I invited them to be a part of the community. After we had maybe 20, 25, I asked my friends to invite their friends. And then it just sort of, I won't say it totally grew organically, but there was an organic function to it. I mean, we were definitely intentional in it, and posting content daily, that type of stuff. But the content that we're posting it's not real estate related, it's community related.
Are you mixing in real estate, or are you just, no, I'm just providing a service and a value to the community about information. So no information.
No, what I do instead is I have past clients and friends and people who know, like, and trust me to make sure that if somebody has a real estate question that they're like, have you talked to Dan yet?
In the forum there, if somebody asks something like that, they'll push them to you.
Because it's a lot better for somebody else to say you should talk to Dan than for Dan to say, hey, you should talk to me. Absolutely. And so it's about teaching your tribe and your community on how to do that for you.
Yeah. I'm curious, you said posting daily. What are you posting there?
Well, we don't post this daily anymore, right? That was really just to sort of get it up and running. But it could be, yesterday there was a community event not too far from there called Clifton Days. And, they shut down the entire town and they had like a large farmer's market and pony rides, though it got canceled because of the rain. But, they get the train, you can ride the train into it and stop. So that would be an example of like, before Clifton Days, we would do a post on that. The day of Clifton Days, we do a post on that. A couple days later, I mean, that could be 3 or 5 posts right there, including, plus you could do a reel by just, filming, hey, here I am at Clifton Days, and just, being a part, integrated in the community, whether it be an event like that or be a local shop. Have you gone here to try ice cream? Have you gone to Peterson's yet to try their ice cream? Have you gone to Villaggio to try their pizza? And highlighting those types of vendors, and then meeting with those vendors, and interviewing them as well. That always gets a lot of traction as well.
Yeah. I have a town that we actually just went to yesterday that's nearby where I live. They have literally 400 festivals in this town. It's one of those outskirts town that is a tourist trap kind of thing. And so, and they play into it. And so there's always something going on there. Where I live is the gateway to the hill country in central Texas. And so there's all sorts of hiking and goings ons that are happening everywhere. And so, I mean, those are all just fodder for that kind of thing. I'm curious, are you, so in terms of creating this community, aside from somebody coming on to ask a real estate question and somebody else saying, hey, you should go ask Dan that question, are you doing other things to kind of seed the real estate push?
Yeah, when I'm doing content, there's always, like, in the background, I've done this from day one, there's always it's like the real estate is like the secondary type thing. I'll give you an example. So this wasn't a part of the group, but this was on my Facebook. One of the most attractive posts that I've done in the last year or two was a photo with me. My daughter was probably 13 at the time, doing an open house in front of my real estate signs with balloons on it. And so it's like the real estate aspect of it is there, but people aren't liking that photo because of my real estate sign. They're liking that photo because of my beautiful daughter. It's Daughter's Day at work, right? And they're thinking that poor girl's got to go to do this open house with her dad, right? And so they're feeling bad for her as well, right? And so,
done that.
right? So everything's always in the background, right? It's subliminally. I don't think that there's very, very many people in the world that I know or know of me that don't relate to me either as a business coach, a real estate broker, or an entrepreneur, right? And sometimes the only challenge that I personally have is sometimes people will relate to me more as a business coach and an entrepreneur than a real estate agent. And that's the only sort of challenge that I personally have. And, but I'm able to really bring that back into why that brings them value, because when I say, listen, I coach real estate agents all across the country, that benefits you because they want to work with me. And I teach them the systems that allow for you to be able to get the most amount of money with the least amount of hassles. And, I'm pitching myself as the go-to guy, as the expert in media. Now it's easy for them to say, yeah, this guy can help me. And so that's just understanding your value proposition, which we're not getting into today, but it is another piece of this whole sales component is why should somebody hire you? And that's a question that when I used to own a brokerage, I used to go around the brokerage teasing my friends that worked at the brokerage, say, hey, why should I hire you? Why should I hire you? Why should I hire you? And sort of embed it to answer that without prompting, just to go. You should know why somebody hired you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other advice for an agent who's kind of new to the idea of lead funnels, for putting stuff out there that's actually going to move needles for them?
Yeah, write down these things. So I mentioned at the very, very beginning is number one is know who is your avatar. Who is it that is your ideal client? What do they look like? And then where do they hang out? What groups do they hang out in? Is it Facebook? Is it TikTok? Is it Instagram? And then understand what is it that is their goals or their pain, internal and external. What is it that their desires, internal and external? And now figure out what type of bait can I get in front of that person. For example, we'll buy your home in 7 days or less, all cash, no inspections, easy. That would be bait for a certain type of home seller. Then make sure that you follow up with them, because you don't want to do all that work I just said and then not make the call, right? I've coached a lot of people and they've done all that. And then they're like, now what? I don't have any business. I'm like, okay, well, how'd the calls go? I'm like, well, I'm waiting for them to call me. I'm like, yeah, all right, well, that's not going to work out so well.
Yeah, you'll be waiting for a while. All right. Well, thank you very much, Dan, for doing this. We really appreciate it.